Good morning again. Good to see you all. Joe, for joining us today. We're recording our session today. We might be doing that more in the future. We're following up on a similar topic to last week where we talked about belonging. You might remember that one of the primary interests in for everyone is how do we belong? And I think we explored that topic in some detail last week. We're continuing today with the topic in a way of how we stay connected. And one of the notions in understanding the big picture is the sense of big mind and ultimacy. And yet, we're going to explore that and how that relates to this experience of awakening. Today, I'm going to start off by reading a short section from Pema Chodron entitled Recognizing Our Kinship with Others. Pema Chodron says, our personal attempts to live humanely in this world is never wasted. Choosing to cultivate love rather than anger just might be what it takes to save the planet from extinction. What is it that allows our goodwill to expand and our prejudice and anger to decrease? This is a significant question. Traditionally, it is said that the root of aggression and suffering is ignorance. But what is it that we are ignoring? Entrenched in the tunnel vision of our personal concerns, what we ignore is our kinship with others. One reason we train as warrior bodhisattvas is to recognize our interconnectedness, to grow in understanding that when we harm another, we are harming ourselves. So we train in recognizing our uptightness. We train in seeing that others are not so different from ourselves. We train in opening our hearts and minds in increasingly difficult situations. So, how do we open our hearts? How do we open our minds? And this is a fundamental question that comes to this point of intimacy. So what would you like to say, Ilana?
Okay. So what she's saying is I find to be personally very true for me. So we talk about we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And what does that mean actually? Sangha, take refuge in the Sangha. That's been a topic for me that I've been looking into for a long time. And it means relationships, really. It means relationships. And from that view of we take refuge, right? Refuge in the Sangha, that means that there's some opportunity here. There's some shelter, there's some safety, there's something precious here that will allow us to develop and to grow. But how do we do that? And what does that actually mean? And so let's take a look at that. So I combine it when I look at it with the concept of emptiness. So typically in Buddhism, what we find is kind of a negating approach. So the concept of ultimacy means that this is, the typical Buddhist approach is this cup does not really exist, right? Because ultimately it will be disintegrated and ultimately it will be dust and sand again, and ultimately, so the approach is very mind-based to emptiness. Then why does it say we can't grasp that, right? The only way we can experience that concept is with our mind. Well, but we can't really relate with our mind. So how does this work, really? Really, what's in this? What's in this? And so then comes the issue of, you put together the issue of impermanence with emptiness, and you start putting that together. And really what impermanence, right? What impermanence means is that everything changes all the time. So how can we relate to someone else if they're changing all the time? How does this happen? In our mind, something else is going on. In our mind, we have this idea that we know this person. Our mind has actually a concept of this person. So when you take that idea of impermanence and you apply that to deep connections, you inevitably come across the concept of emptiness. Because in order to allow for the change in the other person, in order to really be with the person that you are connecting with, or the tree, by the way, or the flower, you have to let go all the time. So what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that you have to be present to who you are with, and you have to be curious to who this person really is. And how do you do that? What does that mean? So it means challenging yourself, first of all, challenging yourself to always attempting to understand them. So how do we do that? Right? How do we, like, you're talking with this person, the person tells you that they don't want this, they want this, they want that, but you want this. How do you not get into a conflict about that? How do you use Buddhism? How do you use the conflict to deepen your own, like Pema Chodron says, experience? We usually get into conflict and we're conflicted. So when we realize I'm here right now, deeply with you, who are you? Right now, who are you? What's going on? I am now brought outside of my mind. I'm no longer in my mind. I'm in a question place. Like, so challenging myself to be like in this question place, right? In the not knowing place with another person, and cultivating that within myself, that it's okay not to really know and to ask questions. I don't need to really know all the time. So then you kind of double click on that, right? You go, okay, I need to go deeper into that, right? What does it mean to not know? Well, that's basically emptiness. So here's this person, And I'm keeping my mind, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, right? That's called the mantra. So I use that as my translator. Okay, just like in the computer, right? So form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So now it's no longer an ultimacy about the ultimate nature that this doesn't exist, which is mental. Now it's presence. It's really being here in inquiry. So cherishing a relationship, cherishing the relationship because we understand that it is subject to change, not fighting the change. Because the exciting part is that it changes all the time. So by embracing, I wrote a few words here, so I'm looking down. By embracing impermanence, individuals aim to cultivate profound connection. And what is needed in that? Resilience, right? So, what does that mean? It means that that's the path. It's the third noble truth. Because that's the way to reduce suffering. So, what's the path? The path is radical intimacy. Radical intimacy is the path. So, for instance, in my garden, which is on the side of a hill, nothing grew. I had a landscaper come and this come, nothing grew. But then things started growing because the birds dropped them. And then I watched what was growing and then I replicated it. And now it's a really nice garden. So that's an example of how that's done. And by the way, I read it, there was an article from a gardener about how that's really how you garden. So I read that and I said, oh, it would take time, right? For the bird to drop the thing. It takes a lot longer than going to the nursery and buying some plants, but that's what nature wanted to do. And it's the exact same thing with relationships in the Sangha. It takes time. The conversations are longer than just opining about things at each other. So intimacy emphasizes communication that is open, compassion. Now we use compassion. What is compassion really? Calm passion. Calm passion. Calm passion. It's not compassion, it's compassion. So how do we do that with somebody who really pisses us off? By getting closer, not further. Our instinct is to get further. Now what happens then? We go to our mind and we suffer. Why? Because we start getting those messages about the person. He's like this, she's like this, she's like that, she's like that. Now we do this. I was hurt by this. I was hurt by this. That's Buddhism. I am wide open. I am wide open. I'm raw. And I'm showing up. It's called the path. So emotional intimacy is focused on connection. Now we'll talk about something else from Buddhism. Connection versus attachment. So what happens in attachment. So in attachment, I like this, I want this, right? Right? It's like, I want it this way, right? But what happens, impermanence happens, right? So how can a relationship that's true last with attachment? I want you to be like this. It doesn't. It doesn't. Relationships don't last with attachment. So we say non-attachment, but you know what non-attachment means? It means deeper intimacy. It doesn't mean letting go. It doesn't mean defending ourselves. It doesn't say, I'm not attached. No, it's this and this and this and this. That's non-attachment. And when you're truly non-attached, you become the same person. That's called intimacy. So then when we talk about refuge in the Sangha, when we apply deep connection, right away, naturally, without contriving, we appreciate, we're grateful. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for you guys right now because you're listening to me, and I'm so vulnerable right now because I'm taking all my work that I've been doing for so long and I'm sharing it with you, and I don't know how you would relate to it. But I have tears in my eyes because I'm speaking it. And I appreciate your attention at this moment so intimately. So intimately.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Mm.
You talk about the deepening, the focused connection versus the attachment.
Mm-hmm.
The deepening connection or focused connection is a dynamic.
Yes.
It's like it's like
alive.
It's alive. It's changing every instant.
Yes.
That connection, as opposed to attachment, which is a static need or static imagined something,
right,
what you want to get.
Yes.
So this focused connection is really the primary dynamic in intimacy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, and that's emotional and physical as well. So when we hug a person, right, there's this, but there's also this. We changes, we sense each other. As we hug each other, we sense and we exchange energy. And for the briefest of instances, we are one. So there's a sentence here I wrote: by embracing impermanence, individuals in Buddhist philosophy cultivate a profound connection without excessive attachment, fostering resilience and reducing suffering, as I said, as they navigate the fluidity of relationships. Thank you so much. Bless you, Sherry.
So what do you think?
What do you think?
Oh, yay.
Is it okay if I share a little bit right now? Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay.
We just finished the Dharma talk, so you'll just
Tell him we're talking about.
we're talking about intimacy and how focused connection is different from attachment, that the dynamic of being connected in the vital intimacy of a moment with another is what primal intimacy is about, as opposed to just our attachment and our feelings of attachment to another.
Which is the true nature of Buddhism. Because in order to be fluid in a relationship, there's got to be the element of impermanence as well as emptiness, which becomes the path. Because then there is a constant connection and evolving as change happens.
So, what did this talk elicit in any of you? I'd like to hear from you.
Sherry, I'm curious what you were going to say.
Yeah. You know, in the last couple weeks in
We're not hearing
oh, you can't hear me?
for some reason. Is there
No, it's off.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
we can't.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. It's funny, in the last few weeks since I've been meditating, when I've been in that kind of connected Buddha state, what's changed is I'm noticing, instead of like the emptiness feeling that you're talking about, I'm feeling like everything, like I'm everything, not nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like in my mind for 20 years, I always thought of it as empty, and now it feels like it's completely filled up and I'm full with everything. And everything is allowed and everything is welcome. And so it's funny when I hear the emptiness, and when you're talking about the cup, I think of, oh, I'm the cup and the air inside it and the dust and instead of the emptiness. So it's just been I'm just sharing that because there's been just kind of a little shift in my mind about what emptiness really means. And it's kind of more everything, which I'm sure is probably the exact same meaning of emptiness when you study.
So emptiness, the full term is really emptiness of inherent self-existence. So all that means is that it's exactly what you just said. So everything is in the cup. The cup does not exist of its own volition. It is interdependent and part of everything. So it's exactly what you're saying.
Okay, good. Yeah, I really loved how you shared it, and that's kind of been my experience. And first, it just feels like in my life, the last few weeks, even, it's just been a more deepening, and it's not in the mind. It's like it's integrated and it's my knowing. It's like I was going to say embodied, but it's deeper than that. It's in my consciousness. It's like who I am, my true self is that everything. And then just not letting, I think I shared last week about the chatter, the distraction of my mind, and trying to just step away from that when it comes up. Thanks for sharing, but going back to that connection with that everything and that safety and that loving space. I don't know, that unconditional love is where, so it's just been that's kind of been the little shift in my life. So anyway.
Yes, Chris.
There we go. Wasn't going to forget to mute this time.
Yeah, it seems to me that a lot, when we come from our mind, the mind kind of looks for differences and ways to separate ourselves from others. And the heart kind of tends to unite and find there's something about coming from a heart space, which kind of pierces through all the differences and kind of finds the commonalities. Um, Also, the mind seems to not rely on direct experience of things or of others, but it's looking for comparing it to past experiences. Well, that person's just like somebody I knew from childhood or somebody I dislike, or, something about their way they look or whatever. And so we have formed some biases of some kind. And if we stay in that spot and we're not aware of it, especially, I think we all do that to some extent. I think the important part is to become more conscious of when we're doing that. And that'll give us an opportunity to move more into a heart space. And, oh, there I go again. I'm doing that thing again, and not beat up on ourselves. Like I said, we all do that. And to some degree, I think it's important for self-survival to do that to some extent. But a lot of times it's harmful. And if we catch that, we can move it to a different, just a different place in our heart, that unconditional, that universal love part of that we all share and we all have in common. Uh, so the other thing about what you said is, yeah, the clinging is always seems very destructive to me, and it's, especially if we've had a history of neglect in childhood or from other experiences. It's really easy to get hung up on that. Oh, I found something that seems like the real love, and now I just want to smother it to death because, uh, I just desperately have needed that for so long. And that never works. You have to, you got to just allow yourself and the other person, or to just grow and to be who they are in the moment. And if you can come together, that's a wonderful thing. Um, uh, but people have to be allowed to move freely in that space. And if you are able to come together, I think that in the context of allowing each other to not feel obligated, I think that can be a beautiful thing. And that can be more real than having some illusion of closeness, which you know deep down inside is always a very vulnerable thing, because you're kind of uh, restricting the other person or tempting to. Anyway, thank you for your talk.
I want to say in my mind, that dynamic you just described of kind of like allowing and coming back together. To me, in my mind, I call it emptiness is form, form is emptiness. So that gives me some sort of a support for that vulnerability that I feel when it begins to open up again.
Yeah, and I also want to thank you, Chris, for bringing up this part of, you talk about the focus connection rather than attachment. That part of the connection with another is also looking back at what you're doing, how you're reacting, the attachments you have, the likes and dislikes, how addressing those aspects in while connecting is an important quality that helps dissolve them to really be more connected. So thanks for pointing that out too.
I'd like to share. Yeah, I really appreciated your ideas. Well, ideas aren't the right thing. What you shared, Alana, and what everybody's shared. It's really beautiful. And just like being in the living inquiry in myself right now, I'm realizing that, like, with the sense of attachment that comes up, you know, given past hurts and whatnot, that actually, if I feel that attachment coming up, then I'm called to actually connect with that part in me, or with that in me which is feeling attached, which didn't get its needs met or in the past or whatever, but that it's sort of like taking this conversation, the whole thing, and just applying it inwardly. What is ultimacy with the part that didn't get what it needed before? What is a fluid connection with my inner experience? And it feels like that's how, I mean, that feels like a beautiful practice that I can bring in to my process of relating to people. And I think the fluidity and the ultimacy idea, and leaning in more, those are some key, sort of some keys for me right now to apply, I guess. So thank you.
I have
Yes, Charles.
I think it's largely a mechanical process, in that we seek people and environments and things that we feel comfortable with, or that give us some sort of pleasure or enjoyment, or an opportunity to express ourselves. I sort of look at our nature as have been chiseled, and in our cases, anywhere from X to X years. And we're looking and seeking people and environments that we can feel comfortable with. I assume that we all feel relatively comfortable right now. And in all honesty, if I go to the store or go out in the street or I go to the gym, they're probably the overall percentage of the people that I will come in contact with, I'm not interested in having a relationship with them. It seems to be a process of, especially when you're put in a new environment, of floating balloons, I call it, of just seeing how other human beings react to my actions, my thoughts, my feelings. And I assume that on whether it's a conscious level or an unconscious level, that they are doing the same thing. And so we find ourselves sort of integrating with individuals that somehow give us an element of being wanted, of being challenged in a certain way that we find pleasurable. Personally, and I understand that, you know, we all have our Buddha nature, whatever that is, but from my point of view, I would say the majority of human beings that I come in contact with, that for me, it's just a work of tolerating them. And in the process, and this is something that I initially was introduced to in the Gurdjieff experience of the non-expression of negative emotions. And I think that currency in itself for that particular idea can get you in this world pretty far, because I can think of all kinds of people that just in my neighbors, in my immediate environment, that it's a process of tolerating them and not expressing negativity towards them. So again, I don't I see what people express with respect to what they think Buddhism is, and the preservation and protection of human beings. And I think that's a concept. I don't know how much validity it has for myself. I think that we can put ourselves in a position where, regardless of what we're doing or where we are, that we're going to try to look out for and cherish in a certain way other human beings around us. Essentially what that means is respect our environment and respect other people. In terms of them becoming conscious, I really don't think there's anything we can do to make somebody else more conscious. I really am not sure what we can do to make our individual selves more conscious. I struggle with the concept of, is it a mechanical process, this experience of life that I am going through, and I'm sort of like a marble in a pinball machine, sort of getting bounced around and trying to keep myself from getting injured or dying. So I wonder if that's the process, or if there is an element of control. And this gets into the free will and determinism debate, which
Can I ask you a question, Charles?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
You talk about just remaining in a position of tolerating other people,
Right.
and to me that is not very intimate. So tell me how you would approach going from tolerating another person to actually developing a focused connection with another being in a moment where you can just, instead of just tolerating someone, is like basically discounting so much of their humanity. And every single human being has the core light in their being. That is a fundamental of all religions. In Buddhism, they call it Buddha nature. In other aspects, they call it just open-heartedness and the light of spirit that all beings have. So how do you connect from just tolerating to actually connecting?
I don't think I do. And personally, irregardless of what we think, I don't think any of us do. I'll give you an example. I have a neighbor who's and I have to deal with them frequently just because of the nature of what has to be done and projects that have to be worked on. And the person, number one, is very, very hostile and a pathological liar. And I do the best I can because I have to deal with this person whether I want to or not. I do the best I can of treating the person with respect and not becoming angry about what they do or what they say. And I even consider myself slightly passive. I will allow myself to become passive in certain situations. But they have a nature, or this person has a nature about them, whether you want to call it a Buddha nature or the expression of energy through their personality. It is something. And the point that I'm trying to make is that that what we have to do, or I don't want to say we, excuse me, but what I feel I have to do is do my best to tolerate them and respect them, even though I know that they have, and I don't see them as being evil. I don't see them as being evil at all. I just see them as being a mechanical process. And they are a human being, and I respect that. Yet at the same time, this particular individual is somebody I don't want to have anything to do with. Now, at the same time, it's a spectrum. I look at it as being a spectrum. You have wackos on the one side, and then on the other side, you have people that are on the opposite, let's just say the opposite side of the spectrum. Maybe some of these people are right here in this, on this video or this Zoom call right now. And these are people that I strive to spend more of my time with. And now again, I don't know if I'm striving to do that or I am mechanically finding myself in a position where I want to relate to people in this environment. So it's a spectrum. And again, I think that we seek out, when again, and I'll say we seek out, or we are mechanically projected into positions where we find ourselves in certain situations. And we were, Alana especially was discussing people and respecting people and having a certain type of love for them. Genuinely, I can feel that with certain people. And then of course, Alana kept saying that, you know, we're always changing and the mug, everything is, I mean, every atom, I mean, it's an infinite process of change going on. And we're doing the best we can to deal with that. So I can see that aspect too. I found that, you know, that hit home. But as far as a Buddha nature of somebody. Everybody has a Buddha nature. I mean, Khomeini has a Buddha nature. Everybody has some sort of expression of energy coming through their personality and their actions and their being. But again, I think I look at the process as being somewhat mechanical.
Charles, excuse me, I want to say that your tolerance to your neighbor is the highest form of intimacy that can be managed within that individual. Why? Because you've taken the time to really understand the nature of this person vis-a-vis your relationship to him. You are managing yourself in order to facilitate the relationship and make it productive. And in doing so, you're making efforts to control your own negative emotion. So that's an act of love. That is what love is. And so, in fact, by accepting this individual as he is,
Actually, it's a she, but anyway, go ahead.
as she is, and making the space and the safety for them to be as they are, your tolerance is love.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I comment on something I heard said with regards to like engaging with people and intimacy? I think the word safety is, to me, that really rings as important. And I don't know if, Ilana, what you were saying about, because for me, I use a lot of negative ideas, including any idea I can come up with to cut somebody down, And I think for me, I've learned that, from parents and role models. Negativity is a way that maybe makes me feel safe, and that's maybe what I'm reflecting on right now. Is I really like what you said, Ilana, about moving forward and engaging. But I guess I've had a lot of hesitation, maybe because I didn't feel safe, or there was really something I've been protecting. And I guess reflecting on that self, for me, I've had a habit of isolating myself in life, which is sad because I don't have these connections. I don't expand and grow. I don't feel comfortable out in the world. But I guess that isolation is a form of sort of like self-protection. And maybe for me, that's been at times the most I could do, was just to sort of protect myself, but not really know how to move to the next step of moving out. But I mean, I guess for me personally, I've always really felt that, protecting myself and protecting other people is very important. So I guess I want to just like offer like respect to, to what maybe Charles said of like, maybe we do have to like be careful. I don't know. I guess it's something I'm still figuring out, but it's like, there's definitely been times in my life where I felt like people were using their channels of intimacy to take things from me, or to, to bully me, or to, and I didn't feel empowered in those situations. I felt helpless. And so safety was something I really had to focus on. I don't know, I guess maybe just kind of riffing on this idea of like safety as intimacy and safety as important, but also how to, make connections with other people.
It's definitely a very delicate process. And the language that I find in that process is tenderness. So maintaining intimacy, the language is tenderness, and skillful means is tenderness. So tenderness toward self, one, tenderness towards the other person, two, brings about skillful means.
Yeah, that's interesting to bring up tenderness with this word safety, because the thing about being safe, um, and even what Charles is talking about in tolerating other, it's like you're finding you have a safe space for yourself that you can meet and approach another, and to how to engage with another where you feel personally safe. It's like you have to be acknowledge that tenderness to self, and maybe that acknowledging all these words, these ideas, in a way they are words and ideas, but in a way they're actually aspects of being, and we're using these different words on how to approach how we connect. And so safety, tenderness, um, tolerance, reverence, respect, all these words kind of elicit these different modes or aspects that are involved. Thank you. Yes, Benny?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Right. Hi, everybody. I'm in a very positive situation because I tested positive the other day. So yes, I got the COVID, and I'm glad that we can go on and have this talk being at a safe distance. And my experience in the past 2 days, having the symptoms, is that I really become sensitive to what my body needs, what me and my body needs to maintain our well-being. Now, my body is my best friend, and he's dying. Okay, there's no denying this. So I would like to treat my body and myself as I would treat somebody who is dying, with very great compassion and caring and sensitivity and intimacy. So in order to do this, I would serve to this dying person only what he really needs and what is best for him. Now, how does it connect? There are two worlds. There's the inner world and the outer world. And my life is conducted in my inner world. So many things happen out there. But they're all that I can relate to is what is being perceived through my senses. So minding that, I try to be very selective about what I go on feeding myself, which I have some control of. That means, how do I cope with all those mess input, massive inputs of negativity that is around me all the time. What I get from the media, what I get from people that I find difficult to be with. It keeps on and on and on and on. And why can I have more control of the way that I filter things, or what am I saying to myself? Is that this person who I don't, or I find difficult to relate to, or I'm attached to some negativity towards, can I do something here to, do I have some flexibility at all? Or I'm just a ball in a pinball machine that I just keep being reactive all the time? Now, to my experience, I find that there is a lot of flexibility, a lot of wonderful, miraculous potential to redefine my experience with regards to people and events. And I don't mean just silver lining, because really trying to connect to the concept of Buddhism means really to accept Buddha nature and my responsibility to find it, really looking closer and discovering it, instead of falling again and again into this trap of labeling things the way that I was pushed into by whoever pulled this little knob on the pinball machine. So that for me is freedom, and that to me is feeding myself with wholesome nourishment. And this I have some control over, I think. I hope. Okay, so thanks.
Did you call it the people machine or the pinball machine?
The little people machine. I like that analogy. Yes. I also like the analogy of the washing machine. Like,
Not so much the dryer.
dry is great. It's fun.
I love the introduction, the reminder rather, that we are dying. I love that. It just melts my heart with softness, because it's true.
No denying this, really.
Yeah, it's true, and it just.
We can all agree on that.
But I mean, what it fills us is with just wonderment at being alive, right? Yeah, it's not a morose thing. It's like the Grateful Dead thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, look at that.
Like to say something? Bow to the Sangha. I feel intimate with you all today. There's something in me that knows there may never be this arrangement again, that it would look this way on the screen. It may, but I take it as a moment for intimacy. And what has been occurring in me recently is that I may have moments of profound intimacy with strangers. And I can tell in that moment that it may never happen again. but that a profound connection has been made with the humanity, with that. Humanity is what we call Buddha nature. We call it humanity. And that there has been potentiated out of the field of emptiness the form of two human beings interacting and enjoying. And what I find is that when that happens, I do not have any craving or attachment. I can see that in our local grocery store, where of late I've begun having profoundly intimate moments with people that have been in that store for decades that I've been going to. And I just opened up to them as myself, as an intimate being, and they opened right back up. And it does not mean that every time I go into the store and see them, that I have that kind of interaction, but I can tell that I know that I've had that with them, and I know that they know. And there isn't a trying to make it happen every time. And that's a certain kind of freedom from being a pinball. And being in the pinball machine then becomes the entire world. We're all the little human bean balls that are walking around and walking into each other. And we can sort of be in intimacy with their Buddha nature humanity. And I bow to you all again.
Mhm.
So can I say that maybe this connection that is made even with strangers or people we meet in a grocery store, in a way, by making that connection, that it's almost like the flipper on a pinball machine that hits the ball in a different direction, that actually that will possibly reorient their day
Mhm.
by
Yes.
making that connection.
Mhm.
So thanks for bringing up the pinball machine. I think Charles did and Benny did too. So, yes.
Can I share one little thing? Frank, that just so resonated with me because I've been thinking about some of the service I do volunteering in my community. And a couple months ago, I decided just showing up and being open to those little encounters, I'm committing to that as another form of my service. And I hadn't actually vocalized it the way you did it so beautifully, but that has brought me so, like, not having any craving, but I can feel my heart is open. I feel my just actually witnessing somebody, seeing their goodness, seeing their Buddha nature, even if they're not even seeing it, just in that moment being able to meet them wherever they are. And it's been such a fulfilling experience for me. So thank you for pointing that out and really sharing that.
John, were you wanting to say something? Hi.
I do want to share a little bit, and I'm really grateful for this group and your opening, Ilana and Doug, and I also really appreciated, Chris, your words. And I'm learning some things here about attachment and connection, and the heart and the mind. And for me, attachment does come with expectations, that we expect something from somebody, and that's a product of the mind. And we all grew up as children attached to parents and others, and the connection, the distinction I'm hearing here is that is from the heart, and vulnerability and opening helps create that. And I'm dealing with some things right now. I've got 3 friends who are dealing with cancer or other illness, and I have a fear of losing them. And my one of my dearest friends in the world, right next door is Roger, who's 96 almost, and he is almost a surrogate father for me, and I do feel attached, and I'm feeling some pain and some fear because he is at a stage of decline, and I visit him every day for an hour or two, but lately he's been sleeping a lot, and I have access to the house, and I go in and check on him, make sure he's okay. But with my late parents and my late brother, I did learn that love persists when someone passes. It stays in me and in each of us, and I do count on that. And I have to confess I do feel attached to Roger, but also connected. And a last comment about the pinball, I think we are all kind of like pinballs, and things happen in life, and we bump into something or find ourselves in a certain spot. Opportunities magically arise when that happens, and we need to be resilient, go with the flow, and you know, take advantage of the opportunity, whether it's positive or negative, but make it better. And that's what I got from what you all shared about the pinballs. I used to play quite a bit. Thank you. Love you all.
I want to say a word about attachment. I do not want to cast it as a negative, rather as a function. It's a function. It's not static. So it's not a constant. It's a variable, and that's the key to a healthy attachment. So we talk about healthy and not healthy attachments. So a non-healthy attachment is one that is rigid, right? And a healthy attachment is one that is resilient and open to change.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Can I just have a quick one for Charles? Let's see. Yeah, my mute's right. I just wanted to add, since may or may not apply to your situation, but I have a roommate that's very disagreeable, doesn't like me, barely speaks to me. I have two roommates. The other one, we get along fine, but this one roommate I've always had trouble with. But fortunately, he's not in town very often, maybe just a couple of weeks every 3 months. So I don't have to do. Right now, he happens to be in town. And as usual, he just kind of ignores me, and it's like I don't exist or something. And what I find I'm doing, I used to let that bother me, but I don't really let it bother me anymore. It's almost kind of amusing. And I'll find myself doing kind of nice things for him. Like I'll clean the dishes out of the sink. Even if he leaves some, I'll wash his dishes with mine, or I'll empty the garbage, when it's full, or whatever, just household stuff. And I'm not sure if I'm doing that to be kind or to really drive him crazy. What is he up to, kind of? But I think it's probably it makes me feel good to do that because I know my intentions are pure. I don't have anything against him. Whatever his feelings are about me, I guess they say that's their business, right? And all I can do is do what I can do, make sure my intentions are as pure as possible and keep my own anger out of it. And that seems to work okay for me. I mean, I know it's not an ideal situation, but for me, that's making the best of it.
Well, Thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll continue with our daily meditation. It turns out we're sitting every morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, except on Thursdays when it's at 6 a.m. So join us Monday through Saturday, except on Thursdays.
And I also want to say that we invite everybody to share their wisdom and give a Dharma talk on any given Sunday. So please just let us know.
Thank you, Ilana. Benny, you want to say something?
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right.
Goodbye.
Have a good day.